Back at it again this week. Welcome into the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Jaguars on SI. And listen, great to have you in. Looking forward to some more Jaguar talk here and a whole lot more fun going on. And speaking of fun, it gets a lot more fun when I'm talking with this man, my personal champion of Big Cat Country, Travis Holmes. Welcome in, my guy.
What's going on with you, baby? What's going on, Duval County? How y'all doing?
Hey, listen, you've been spending a lot of time in Duval County. You can say it like that. Dropping in on OTAs and camps and things and the like, doing a great job. I put up a lot of good times on the Duval Dive YouTube channel, by the way. Officially on Monday, 2 weeks old. That's right. Still an infant, folks. So come check it out. Go ahead, subscribe, do the thing. Of course, shouts to our other partners as well. Satopa Media, A7BN Sports, Huddle Up, etc., etc., etc. But
And
Travis,
media. Yes.
what's that?
I said,
Oh,
and in media. Yes.
yeah. Did I say sports media? Did I said that? Yeah.
Exactly.
3-point conversion too, because you'll hear them on iHeartRadio. Yeah, I'm going down the list, man. We got a lot of friends and all sorts
We
of
got a
folks.
lot of people in our corner, baby. And that ain't a bad thing to have. I love it.
It's a beautiful thing. But listen, Travis, let's get into this, man, because what I find interesting,
Mm.
and I'm not saying this just because of the article I wrote about Andre Cisco's reaction to the extensions that you will see on Jaguars on SI. Bing! Although I thought that was telling. We'll probably get into that a little bit some. But and it's not even T Wigs on on Locked On Jaguars even talking about building what he's calling consistency.
Mhm.
If you haven't seen the short yet, and I know Travis, you have because you're in it, where Travis is breaking down what has been achieved. They're working on a new stadium, the Jags, Josh Allen extension, Trevor Lawrence extension, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's good times, baby, is how you put it. I don't know if you're feeling dynamite about your group or what. See what I did there? But for a guy that owns a t-shirt that says this team makes me drink, I don't know if it's that simple or you really have a positive outlook for where the Jaguars are headed or if it's a more complicated question. So I don't mean to corner you and to have you answer this question on the show, or maybe I mean to platform you as the knowledgeable human being you are about the Jacksonville Jaguars, as any good host in my position should. But is that really like tell it the direction the Jags are heading is good, bad? Where do you sit on that, man?
Well, that's the fun part about this is because when it's bad and when I feel that it's bad, I'm consistent. I'll tell you I think it's bad.
You've
I
done it on
think
this show.
I've done it on this show. I've done it before we had this show. I'm consistent on this. And when I'm not a fan of the moves being made, you will know I'm not a fan of the moves being made. And also, so it was a shocker to me. I even said it earlier in this offseason when I realized, wait, am I a homer? Everyone else disagrees with me and I'm the one that's positive. What is happening to me? I don't know what's going on. But that's what it is. I'm not used to being the optimist, but hey man, my opinions are my opinions, my opinions. My opinions based on the moves that's being made. And when I tell you beforehand, this is what I feel like they should do, and then they do that. Or if I feel like this is the way that this should go and it goes that way, then I'm gonna have to call a spade, baby. And at the end of the day, that's kind of how I felt about it with this draft, with this offseason across the board, and even in the way that they're speaking, the fact that they're not talking about, hey man, this is a team that we need to build depth and all of this rah rah soft stuff. And I'm calling it soft because I felt like it was soft last offseason. And now we're talking about punching you in the mouth. We're talking about being more physical. We're talking about building competition, and we're showing it with our actions. This team just brought in what is this, the fourth, fifth receiver for the bottom of the roster just to try to churn that and try to make it better. They're discussing bringing in the UFL Offensive Player of the Year and Hakeem Butler, and then they end up signing. Most recently, they end up, signing. Goodness gracious, Denzel Mims, the old Jets receiver, and it's
Oh,
not about yeah, and it's not even about him necessarily. It's just about the fact that they've said that they were going to be competitive. They've said that they're going to keep investing and trying to get better and better and better, keep churning this roster, and then they're actively doing it. Now I'm seeing words meet actions, and that excites me. That gives me some confidence. Now the only question of the hour is it too little, too late?
And let's give you a little fairness too, because you talk about, having that moment of, am I a homer? And having that self-realization kind of piece. Here's the thing. And tell me if I'm getting the stat wrong, but as I understand it, before the arrival of Doug Peterson, well, or actually, yeah, no, before the arrival of Doug Peterson, the previous 11 seasons leading up to Doug Peterson's arrival, I should say, 10 of them, 6 wins or less, I believe is the number, right?
Yeah.
Back-to-back winning seasons, and I know you didn't make the playoffs in both of them. I get that. But the fact that a playoff miss like that was seen as a disappointment too is also, in my opinion, an evidence of an increased cultural improvement, shall we say. So when you see that kind of change happening, where maybe the Jaguars have gotten the quarterback position, for example, more correct than they have in a long time, there's something to be said for improvement actually existing. Like listen, as a 49ers guy, I've experienced what you've had. I've had people tell me, Kyle, you're more homer than usual. I say, no, it's better than they've been. They're an overtime in a Super Bowl away from supplanting Patrick Mahomes II with a healthy offensive line.
Yes.
So I would say that some of that is in play. However, there's been a lot of things with extensions and stuff going on. And listen, I mentioned Andre Cisco sounding off on Sirius XM NFL radio, which I wrote about on Jaguars on SI. Bing! That particular piece, such that it is. Oh, by the way, you got fans already. Look at you, Travis. Shouts to Tyler for jumping in and throwing some fire on T Holmes there. But I guess kind of what I'm saying is, so Andre Cisco obviously was excited for the contract extensions for both Trevor and Josh Allen, right? And the even, and I mentioned this in the article, even the, let's say, pessimist out there, the pessimistic member of the Duval devout, which fan bases have them, all fan bases. Try dealing with the UCF fan base. Listen, live covering UCF with the black and gold banneret, bing, will show you some hater fans like no other. But I digress. Even the most cynical fan, one who owns a "this team makes me drink" shirt, would say, well, he's just saying that because his contract year is coming up. Well, yeah, but here's the thing. He's using speech talking about he wants to stay there. That isn't necessarily a consistent thing about Jaguar free agents of late as well. Need I bring up Ngakoue, for example?
Yeah.
That's fair. What about that Ramsey dude, who I'm told is this great corner, which he's great. I don't think he's as good as everybody else does. I would dare say, I would use the term overrated, but certainly not bad, right? But nonetheless, a key defensive player for what they were doing at the time. And he was very vocal about how he needed to depart from the Jags, if everybody remembers, right? So I think there is evidence of an improvement and, dare I say, a foundation for stability. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And from day one, when Doug Peterson was hired by Trent Baalke, to be clear, I originally said, I don't know how this is going to go. Because I told you originally, I had my thoughts of where they should go with the coaching staff search. I originally thought it was going to be Byron Leftwich. It ended up being Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson is a great find, and he's a solid coach. But my question was always, is this basically Doug Marrone with an upgrade, or is this something more than that?
I think you even wrote as much somewhere, if I remember.
I'm sure I did at the time. And that was always going to be my question. It was going to be, hey, is it better to have a different GM with a new coaching staff, or is it better to just have a great coach with a good quarterback, and that's going to always get you 500 and better? That was always the situation for me. So it was always going to be a landing point of, is this the coach that's going to get you to that next step? Is this the coach that's going to have you build a peripheral winner on and on and on consistently? Or is this going to be a coach that's just going to get you to a point where you're solid, where you're just a reasonably average to above average team, and you have to find that next guy to get you to that next step? We don't have the answer yet, But this year is going to kind of be one of those pinnacle moments that's going to let you know whether or not it's going to fall on the right side or the left side of that line, though.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind, stability and winning Super Bowls are two different things, right?
Correct.
I'll put it this way: I don't think the Duval would be any bit offended if Doug Peterson becomes another version of Omar Epps. I'm sorry, Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. Okay, I would. I don't think. I don't think the Duval. If that happens, Travis, the argument could be made that Doug Peterson would clearly be the best coach in Jaguar history, right?
Facts.
I don't think the argument can be made that Trevor Lawrence isn't a trajectory to be the best quarterback in the franchise. He still hasn't passed Brunell, in my opinion, but I say that because the jury isn't out yet, right?
Okay.
There's still time. How long did Brunell play in Jacksonville? It's been a while. It's certainly been more than 3 or 4 seasons, correct? That's why I said that, do I think he's going to beat him? Listen, as a Brunell guy, I know for a fact Trevor's going to supplant him unless he gets injured real bad or something.
Okay.
This is why. Thank you, Mitch Morse, for coming in and doing your best to prevent that in the upcoming season. By the way,
jeez.
But let me take it over to the defensive side too, because the most recent, let's say, playoff success that this franchise has had was under a group known as Saxonville, right? And that group. Do you feel like the defense has that stability building on their side? I know they got Josh Allen. They locked up Foye Luwakin, and the DBs are a question.
Yeah.
But do you see Ryan Nielsen as somebody that has the potential to be there for a minute too?
I mean, so now we're talking potential versus the reality, and that's where I'm absolutely going to fall on two different sides of this line because I am this guy makes me drink guy.
I worded that question just
so because this team has made me drink historically and consistently in the past, I have the confidence that Ryan Nielsen is and can be that guy because he's already shown that ability at another NFL franchise with a pretty bad offense. And honestly, the cupboard was pretty bare in Atlanta. He did this. He's shown this. We've put this on film and we've seen it with players that we do, I think, over all of Duval County kind of believe that roster on that defensive side was not very good. They just had a few key players. I think the Jaguars are a significantly better roster. That does not mean that this defense will necessarily be great when we need it to be great. And what I mean is they can be great, but what if they're only great in 2025 instead of 2024? That's the Kansas City Chiefs. That's the Kansas City Chiefs route from last year. Like they had to build through the draft. It took a season for them to become from the 22nd defense into a top 5 defense. Like there was a season of cooking going on. So does Ryan Nielsen have that potential? Absolutely. But because of the year that we are in and because of the timing when everything seems to be kind of maturating with this offense and with the rest of this team, this feels more like you need to win now year. This is a win now season.
Really?
And if that is the case, I'm not saying that it is, but if that is the case, that this is more of a win now season because frankly, you've gotten better. I believe the Jaguars have gotten better, to be clear. But have you gotten so much better that it makes up for what you didn't do last season, in addition to the other teams that surround you also getting better? Like, does it? Because you can be a better team than last year and still have a worse record than last season.
Absolutely.
Like, that's how the schedule's different, the players are different, the circumstances are different. That's kind of how this goes. So do I have confidence in Ryan Nielsen? Absolutely. Long term. Do I have confidence in Ryan Nielsen immediately? Ooh, that's a lot of moving parts, and that makes my butt clench just a little bit. That's lemon booty right there.
Yeah, the lemon booty is not. I love how we're saying this like in a serious conversation. The lemon booty isn't surrounding Ryan Nielsen, but more around because you perceive the coming schedule to be more difficult than last year. I personally am glad we don't have an HR department to test you for the drugs that induce this opinion. We've had this episode already. Please check it out on the Duval Dive YouTube channel. I clearly have a victory over Travis. I'm joking. Take it easy. It's actually a very interesting conversation. But the punchline is, I don't think it's Ryan Nielsen you're necessarily worried about. I think, and tell me if this is correct.
Okay.
There's a real identity change on defense where the coverage the man coverage focus has the potential to, well, not potential, it will expose the DB core.
Correct.
Whether it's better for worse, that's what we're going to see. And honestly, considering the list of quarterbacks that they're facing, I like a lot of it. Honestly, the only quarterback, unfortunately for you Duval devout out there, the only quarterback that I'm truly worried about on the schedule today facing a man coverage is CJ Stroud. Kyle, what about Aaron Charles Rodgers? Do you know if he's going to be on the field? I don't. I'm pretty certain he won't be that late in the season. That's why I'm not worried about it yet. You know, but the
That's
fact
fair.
that quarterback you gotta face twice, problematic. Okay, I understand that completely. And Andre Cisco actually made another good point in that same podcast I mentioned that John Shipley wrote about on Jaguars on SI.
Mhm.
Bing! About him seeing an upgrade, particularly at the receiver position, AFC South wide.
Mhm.
The Titans have a significant upgrade at that spot. The Texans, we devoted an episode talking about the Texans getting Stephon Diggs,
Yeah.
you know, and the Colts, I don't know that they necessarily upgraded, but they have a potential to face an upgrade if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy past 2 weeks, right?
Right.
So I can kind of see that being a threat as well to Ryan Nielsen and the defense, this evolving
Yeah.
division. I'll say this much.
Okay.
Acquiring Nielsen now in the middle of this evolution and getting away from a Caldwell system that was at the time built to stop Jonathan Taylor, um, King Henry himself,
Ah, yes,
all
Derrick Henry. Yeah, I got you.
Derrick Henry. I keep getting the wrong name. Why Derrick? It's I'm glad I didn't call him John Henry. People think we talk about
Hey, man, it don't matter. He'll tighten. You don't gotta say his name right. He ain't earned that. Come on.
spoken like a member that we're all about. But Derrick Henry was another factor too as well.
Right.
It's just all the different running pieces. The Texans.
The AFC South has finally entered the 21st century in actually becoming a passing league or a passing division. So now the defense has to merge to being a pass stopping defense.
And I could argue the Jags brought it there, but I think that's another piece that's going to test Ryan Nielsen and this Jaguars defense.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can agree with that, and I can even get down with it. So, but at the end of the day, that is the reason that I do believe in. I believe in Nielsen and Ho. I believe in the way that he coaches. I believe in what he's already put on tape. Basically, I believe in his resume and his coaching staff. I just don't know if it's going to be too little, too late. It's the same conversation with the bulky mishaps, because growth should be incremental. If you stagnate after a season and then you try to just pick everything back up, there will be some growing pains, and sometimes those growing pains means you miss the playoffs by one game, because that's the super thin margin in the NFL, unfortunately.
And everybody seems to forget that, right? The Duval devout and the national media and everybody acts like the Jags weren't a factor in Week 18, and that is completely just an inaccurate stance. I hear, oh, well, we missed the playoffs, bruh. Let's talk about what may have happened, not just in Week 18, but if Trevor it doesn't miss the game against the Bucks, do you think they stop the Jags? I don't. I don't know.
No, I think they absolutely get in the playoffs, but I also don't believe that they win much in the playoffs. I can be clear and I can be fair on that, because the team has some critical issues, unfortunately. But I do agree with you, and I think it is the biggest and best thing long term for the Jaguars that they did not make the playoffs, because if they made the playoffs and maybe had a competitive game and lost in the first round, or maybe even won a game and lost in the second round, I don't see a lot of these wholesale changes happening. Like, I don't know
That's
that
a good
this team,
point.
right? I don't know that this coaching staff is taking everything to the woodshed and actually trying to figure out whether they should break the whole offense down or start from scratch, and all these other heavy hitter conversations that we're having face to face with these coaches. I don't know that these take place if they make the playoffs.
I will respond this way, right? Because whoever the Texans played in the playoffs last year, right?
What was it, the Ravens?
Right. I think the Ravens beating the Jags, let's say the Ravens beat the Jags the same way that they beat the Texans, which highly probable.
I mean, it kind of did, yeah.
Okay. So I think that would have inspired these wholesale changes. But where I agree with you, the mentality of what's going on. Well, actually, no, they had to beat the Browns first. And with the way, let me rephrase. I think the Jags would have gotten vengeance over the Browns just based on the way that Flacco played, or rather
Mm,
didn't. So I think they would have gotten actually, you know what? It would have been better from one standpoint. People would have had a lot more confidence in a 2 playoff win, Trevor Lawrence,
right,
and extension, which,
right.
okay, let people be wrong. I'm cool with that. Getting pummeled by the Ravens, I think, would have been enough for some of the wholesale changes.
Hmm.
What I'm glad about is that the expectations, had they done that, the expectations would have still been what they were, and it would have been a greater impact in the camp. Because, Travis, I don't know about you, you were there more than I was, but being there myself for the day that I was in mandatory mini camp, me following you on Big Cat Country, bing, and many other places, um, one thing that hasn't jumped off any pages for me or off of any video screens is expectation. Nobody's talking about, are you guys going to make the playoffs? Nobody's
Hmm.
talking about, well, are you building to do this? I haven't even seen that much. Nobody really has been talking about what they expect from this team, because I don't think they know yet what to make of this team. Do you think that's a thing?
I do think that's a thing, and I think it's a great thing. I think this team plays better. This coaching staff operates better. The whole system is better when they don't have expectations. And I think this is going back into, I mean, frankly, as probably as long as I've been a Jaguar fan, this team generally just doesn't. They don't play well in primetime games. They don't play well in games that they're just heavily favored and things of that nature. Like they just generally play better as everybody. It's Duval versus all y'all. We just do better backs against the wall and without that the burden of expectation, the burden of having to hear your own name in the media, or read the headlines, et cetera, et cetera. And they didn't that didn't work well for them. So maybe it's great that the Texans are the new darling of the AFC South, and now the Jaguars have to become that dog. If they want to be the biggest dog on the block, then they're gonna have to beat up the quote unquote biggest dog on the block. I'm just fine with that, man.
Because I'll tell you another franchise that struggles under the spotlight, these same aforementioned Texans. It seems the moment they sniffed any success, what had happened was, you
Hmm.
know, they get an injury significant. They run into a Thomas Edward Patrick Bieber Brady, the second.
Right.
It's interesting. An argument can be made they got as far as they did a particular year because Connor Cook took over at quarterback, for one game in particular. Not throwing
Yeah.
any shade at the Raiders, but that was an unfortunate situation in and of itself. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Now with the infusion of Mitch Morris from Buffalo, and the fact that we pray that the offensive line is cured again, that is a hope. I'm going to call it. I'm gonna always keep it 100. That is a hope.
Yeah,
He's put it on tape. He's been a middle of the pack, just maybe even above average offensive center, middle of the offense, as far as coaching up the guys, as far as getting them all on the same page, calling the protections and pass protections specifically. He's
right.
been very good at that. So that should shore up the offensive line. But we are resting a lot of faith on that. We are not just resting faith on his ability, but we're resting faith on his health. And I've said this all off season, and that is a big thing for me, because again, you are one injury, you are one concussion for a guy who's had 6 concussions in 8 years. You are one concussion away from being right back to Luke Fortner, who everybody seems to blame everything on all this off season.
Yeah.
And that again, that don't give me the greatest of feels, but it is what it is.
By the way, shouts to Cole Johnson checking in. What's going to see you there? You would have seen Cole Johnson get absolutely thrashed by joking. No, the mistake I made of opening my mouth and challenging Cole Johnson to come on the In or Out Sports Debate Show went very well. So make sure you check that out on Sertoba Media if you haven't yet. Yeah, I'll give that a bing. Well, Travis, I was going to talk some DBs with you here. I mean, but we're 25 minutes in, so I'll narrow the question to this. By the way, you know what though? Let me follow up with Mitch Morris, because I hear what you're saying. The injury history is a fine thing to be concerned about. I think there's something to be said for playing under Doug Peterson, under Trevor Lawrence versus Josh Allen. There's
Fair.
going to be a lot more how you say, properly pencil whipped plays executed than just hold on for dear life and protect Josh as best you can
That's
for a
fair.
guy, who doesn't necessarily, air quotes, need it as much because he's just a lot of human Josh Allen. I listen,
Yeah.
I'm prepared to see Josh Allen regress. I'll say it again. But I think the reason why there's a potential for him to make that much of a difference was what you mentioned in the intellectual aspect of what the center brings to the offensive line. And that has been dramatically understated. Not so much because people don't know it. It's just not a fun topic, and a lot of people may not know it. Peyton Manning's success to a large degree has a lot to do with Jeff Saturday. Okay. For all the this and that we saw Peyton Manning do, we saw Jeff Saturday doing this version of it from a crouch position. If you can't see the video, I look probably really ridiculous. But I think that aspect of it is very much underappreciated, to say
No,
the
that's
least.
that's fair. No, that is fair because everyone talks about miscommunications because they lead to interceptions, and everyone knows what an interception looks like, and everyone knows when the receiver's in the wrong spot, but the quarterback's in the wrong spot. But no one pays attention to the fact that when that fumble happened on that sack, on that sack
There you
fumble, it was
go.
because of a miscommunication from the center and the quarterback, or the center and the guard, because they're not talking. So that's facts right there. That's a good call out.
Or trying to account for a guy that's missed the first 4 weeks due to a suspension and not exactly being back in sync yet. There's a lot of little things that are working better for the O-line this year than last year. Who knows? We talk about injuries. If Ken Robinson stays healthy the first 4 weeks, he's already better off than he was last year coming in off a suspension, right? And if
You
Anton
still
Harrison's a year better, again, you're talking about one player, and I'm sure we'll get into this more next week because you have teased the heck out of the topic for next week. Is Jacksonville relying too much on new players and all that? Bing! A little tease there, but I think there's a lot of improvement by the people already in the building simply because they'll be there either longer, more consistently, or knowing more than they did last year in the case of Anton Harrison, right? So
Right. And some of it's just addition by subtraction. And no one likes to hear that, especially when the team obviously wanted to bring Calvin Ridley back, and they knew that they were going to have to use him in different ways than how they used him in 2023. That didn't happen. But we still also know that we have Brian Thomas Jr., who is a different type of receiver, but can do some of the same things. And if you've seen the Trevor Lawrence success rate on his throwing, he's very good at throwing deep. He's very good at throwing screens and the out routes, and he didn't do very much of any of those things other than throw out routes last season. And Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. just happened to be very, very good at running these three routes. That sounds like a recipe for offense go boom.
Maybe it's not so hard to say goodbye to yesterday after all.
And I'll take. Let's go.
Tell the world where you can be found, my man. We're getting to that time.
You can find all of my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars on bigcatcountry.com. Take a visit. Save it as your favorite. If you're not, man, you hating. Come on, man. Do better. Be better. We're in 2024. I have an incredible article coming out on Monday morning at 8 a.m. about Trevor Lawrence, doing a deep dive on, let's just doing a full nuanced conversation that you just can't have on the socials about who is he and who is he not, and who is the national media telling you he is, and why are they a liar. Let's go.
Bing! Boom! Please tell me you call out Emmanuel Ocho. I'm looking forward to it already. If he was drafted where Brock Purdy was, he'd be a whole different quarterback. First of all, shut up. And second, yeah, he would. He'd have Kyle Shanahan. Oh my God!
Everyone who's played in the league is not qualified to analyze the league. Again, if you're talking about DB play and you played DB, I'm gonna trust your opinion a little bit. If you played, I don't know, defensive, nose tackle, and you're talking about quarterback play, I got questions. Are you qualified to have this conversation? Being in the league don't make you qualified. Being that position gives you some credence.
But enough about Sam Perkins.
My bad.
I know that's a different league, but still. Anyways, of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my writings with Jaguars on SI, the 3-point conversion, and the black and gold banneret, as well as my weekly podcast, The Student of the Game, Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I'm still going to have a show even though I'm going to be in New Orleans over the weekend. Whatever. Nick Porcelli going to come in, wrap up the NHL Stanley Cup final with me, because certainly by then, certainly well sooner than Wednesday, it'll be wrapped up. We'll talk about that then. Any other developments in the week that take place, be sure to know for a fact that that'll come up there. We're also approaching NFL previews. Look out for that. And of course, look out for this fine show on oldschool101.com, 12 to 2 during the sports block, along with the student of the game if you don't catch this video here, and also on iHeartRadio with the 3-point conversion. Fun times, man. Looking forward to this next episode where you really get the analytics going there, Travis. That's going to be fun. But until next time, everyone, class dismissed.
Hey.